Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and hey, let's talk Shokugeki no Soma, chapter 285, my impressions, my thoughts. I'm going to try and keep it relatively short, but actually I don't know, I just don't want to complain too much. Overall, this chapter, I thought it was really good. And it all has to do with Soma's interactions with his judge. But while this chapter is really good, the circumstances that get us into it are still not my favorite thing ever. And the rhetoric that's going on still with the whole light side and dark side, it's just, I still find it so stupid. But one of the things that I really enjoy seeing this in this chapter is that even the writing itself can't support the whole light side dark side idea. Because the whole light side dark side idea is based on such extremes that when you actually look at the everyday life, or like not even everyday life, when you look at the nuances in the relationships between both of the dark side and light side chefs, it falls apart. It falls apart, and then you also have Soma going in there and fighting in opposition to that whole rhetoric too. It's gonna make for a really interesting thing where I think it's gonna be funny that you're gonna have this rhetoric going on in the background to establish everything, but then you're gonna have the author himself contradicting it. And we're gonna go through what I'm trying to explain in this chapter. What is ultimately happening, and one of the reasons I like it, is just the writing itself is just proving why this whole dark side light side distinction is just surface level and is only there to hype things up and set context, and why it ultimately is just bunk. But before we get into that, before we start looking at the writing that's making this really work out really well, let's just talk about the small annoying bits first. And it doesn't really have to do with the beginning of the chapter. Like honestly, the chapter overall has Soma being Soma, and when Soma's getting to be himself, he's a competent character. And so he's gonna pull things off, and it's gonna be really cool to look at, right? So before annoyances, other really small good moments is like the moment that Soma goes up into the judging room and he just got in there, no one knows how he did it. That was a good Soma moment. Other good small small Soma moments? Actually no, because everything else is wrapped into the whole judging process. So we'll jump to the annoying moment that's independent of the whole judging process. It's with the WGO's boss person, whoever it is. Was it confirmed that the boss person is a man? Because actually, I'm wondering, because we see that final panel, and we see the final panel of the WGO person, and I don't recall if it's a man or a woman, if that's been confirmed. I mean, the silhouette makes it look like it's a woman, but you know, I'm just thinking now, like, it just came to my mind, what if the head person of the organization is one of Irina's parents, and this whole thing is just, this parent wants to see if Soma's worthy of her. That'd be pretty funny. It's just because, like, that last little line where the parent, sorry, I shouldn't be saying parent, where the head is saying that they don't understand how Soma can make it through as the son of a diner family. I'm just thinking, get off your high horse, you dick. You invited criminals to your little thing to see who's the best chef, and you're gonna be drawing a line at a family diner owned by one of the, I guess, the second seats of the previous, or you know, generations of Totsuki. Listen, if you thought Joey Cheetah was enough to be able to get Soma a nomination, you shouldn't be suddenly drawing a big question saying, oh really, a diner kid's gonna do well? Like, come on. This organization is capable of doing the research such that they are able to find out what criminals have done in their history. And this person is not able to, like, just even go in and say, oh yeah, he's the son of this really amazing guy who was once in contention for the blue. Yeah, he's probably going to be really skilled. You can't make that. Instead, you're just going for the full-on discrimination of a dining family. You know, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. This organization has shown that it's relatively open-minded and is in the pursuit of good food, and it has the resources to do extensive research. That line at the end is ultimately a line there only there because of story convention, because the story needs someone to say, oh hey, I don't believe in you. I'm going to be the person rooting against you. I'm the head of this, establishing why you're special as a main protagonist or a main character. Right? It's stupid. It's a stupid line. It's very annoying. And this is just kind of more of the worst parts of Soma, which are really just these empty kind of lines that happen and you don't get any payoff for them until way later. I'm seeing this as effective as one of those horrible cliffhangers that we had during the Regiment de Cuisine. It's just the author trying to drum up suspense, trying to make things more important, trying to establish more of a relationship between Soma and the mysterious head of the tournament, to say that, hey, Soma has some, or I don't know, trying to establish some kind of drive for why Soma needs to win this and prove this person wrong. I don't like it. I don't like this approach. I think it just makes this person look really stupid, given what this person has shown that they are capable of with their organization. So that aside, when Soma's not trying to be cheap, it's really good otherwise. And we see a lot of that with the judging for this one. So this was going to be an interesting situation from the very beginning, especially because it was touching on the subject of death. And honestly, I like how Soma handled it. That was a very mature way of handling it. Even when he takes that breath in and tells the guy, you know, everyone's gotta die sometime, it's still, I hope that if Soma's mother is dead, this moment kind of builds up into it. Because if Soma has an appreciation for death like this moment only, we can retroactively say like, oh yeah, this is why he's so mature if we find out his mother died. But otherwise, he's being very mature about the whole situation. And I loved how he ends it off with telling this guy like, hey, if you think you're actually gonna die, I'll serve you food. And I really like the whole build up into that. I like the whole challenge of this man's rhetoric. And I like how Soma was able to prove him wrong by making a dish that makes you want to eat more and also kind of revitalizes him. Overall, definitely that was Soma being pretty impressive. That was awesome. And the panels were really beautiful for this whole little bit, so I am so happy. And also the cooking was just relegated to 2 pages, which is also amazing. I hope we don't go into just full chapters of cooking in the future. I would be so happy if we just do 2 pages of cooking, 3 pages of judging, and then everything else is just relations between the characters, because that's where Soma is. Oh, so good. Man, so good. Anyway, let's talk about the parts that start breaking the rhetoric of dark chefs and light chefs. So one thing that's going against this whole dark chef mentality is that the author is trying so hard to make these characters edgy as all heck. On one side, this chapter isn't so bad because you have the dark chef commentator, who I legitimately like. I think he's cool, and he's also like an exposition machine, so I really appreciate him. And then you have the judge himself with a gun in his back or tucked away in his pants, and I'm just thinking, okay, that's kind of edgy, but it conveys the sentiment that this guy wanted to die. And then you have the little bit at the beginning where one of the proctors or one of the officials for the tournament's also saying like, oh yeah, the dark chefs, one wrong move and things could escalate into horrible situations. And it's like, okay, I get it. These guys play with guns. You're really trying hard to establish how intense they are. But at the end of the day, what ultimately changes in the caliber of these chefs? This chapter points out it's a mindset. It's ultimately the dark chefs are just ballsier, which really also doesn't make too much sense because the dark chefs have to be ballsy within the realms of reason. I think the mindset's a bit more nuanced, but that's not the point. Anyway, the judge ultimately, he's selling the idea that the mindset matters, that the light side chefs aren't as confident as the dark side ones. Okay, cool. But then, you know, I think about the situation. You have them making dinner for the mafia families, whatever. What's the difference between that and making dinner for politicians? Like, you imagine you are a chef, you just got paid for the biggest job of your life, you're gonna be making food for some diplomats. You want to make a good impression because otherwise that's gonna make your representative, your sponsor, look really bad. You know, if you're working for, especially in Japan where saving face is important, I don't see the difference between that kind of high stress situation and the high stress situation of the mafia or the Yakuza. I don't see the ultimate difference here, because I think, given the social pressure in both situations, at the very least, the light side people can have some kind of experience where it does feel like the career could end if they screw it up. Now, mind you, yeah, having the threat of death unfolding is a pretty good motivator, but I think it's diminishing returns. I don't think that difference, or that kind of fear, makes that much of a difference in the whole cooking process, because cooking itself has nothing to do with how afraid you are of what's going to happen after you have the meal. So in two relatively high stress situations where your career is literally on the line and where there's a lot of important people having food, I don't see the difference that would create a distinction between dark side and light side chefs. Moreover, going into more contradictions and nuances of this whole point, the author is selling us on this whole edginess of the dark side, and the dark side having this edginess being what sets them apart. Whereas in this chapter, when you're having the old man's flashback, you get to see an act of kindness within the dark side. And you realize, okay, they're not just caricatures, they're not just evil all the time. You have the boss of whatever organization this old man worked for telling him, hey, thank you for always being here. Live long. That was a nice moment, and that goes against this whole caricature of dark side, light side. There is still opportunity for kindness in the dark side, in the same way that there's opportunity for shady dealings on the light side. And man, I hate to have to use the light side, dark side rhetoric too, but like, man, consider Aizen. The man was bribing people. That's pretty shitty to do. And also his operations, the way that he took out businesses, those were some pretty aggressive operations. And when you consider that this old man had his start selling illegal rice on the black market during wartime, and you consider what Aizen's done, like, to some degree, you know, it's kind of hard to actually properly distinguish what's on the up and up. At the end of the day though, I do think this would all be better if they just called the light side chefs what they are, and that is legal. Even Aizen, even though he was doing a lot of shitty underhanded things, chances are he was still skirting on the side of the law. Anyway, moving on to more points that kind of just destroy this whole rhetoric of dark side, light side. You had Soma also pointing out that it doesn't matter who's who. Your guys are all still trying to cook. And this is like the unifying thing. There's a limit to how far being edgy can make your cooking amazing. It's all about the process of exploration and self-discovery. Whether you're cooking for mafia bosses or whether you're cooking for a bunch of high-end CEOs, it's not really going to change whether or not you as a chef are trying to improve your own craft. Mind you, again, the illegal people, they have every reason to try and be as good as they can be. But I don't see the difference in that drive compared to Shinomiya's drive to try and have a great restaurant, because we've seen how much he suffers over it too. I don't think that their journeys of discovery in honing their craft trump like Shinomiya's journey in honing his craft, right? It's just that this, again, a big issue here is that they're trying to sell me that these dark side chefs are so amazing because of their background, but at the end of the day, it's just a profession. All that's changing between these two sides is that one of them might potentially get hurt, and you know, they're also illegal. And I don't think I'm going to be sold on those differences aside from the one that this old man was able to sell me on for this chapter. I think one thing that I also find is kind of bothering me is that people are thinking, and I don't say, when I say people, I mean like, oh, I've only seen a minority saying this, but people think that the dual generation is special because they have parents from both dark and light side, and they are half dark side chefs and half light side chefs. And all I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, guys, nothing changes if they are if their parents were an illegal chef. What's gonna change? Honestly, what changes if one of their parents is illegal? I don't know. I don't see what changes. What? Are they gonna suddenly know some kind of secret food art? Is this suddenly Toriko, where they can do dark techniques to make their cooking their cutting speed increase tenfold? Is that what's on the dark side? Just really hardcore stimulants? Oh, maybe they learned how to take steroids so that they can cook better. Or maybe they learned how to take coffee pills so they can cook all night long without the threat of losing their fingers. Like, no, man. I find it really ridiculous. I swear, if Soma reveals like, oh yeah, Soma's mom was a midnight chef, What do they want me to say to that? That's just like, alright, that doesn't influence Soma in any way. Well, okay, mildly influenced, but you know, it doesn't influence his skill in any way. It just means he had a really good chef as a mother. I don't see the big deal. But I swear, if the Jewel generation is revealed to have an illegal chef in their family somewhere, this guy's gonna have to try really hard to sell me on why that makes them special, because all I see is just good chefs. And actually that can't work, because Akira was found in a slum, so he can't have that amazing of a skill. And Rio was pretty much working in a horrible restaurant in the first place, so I feel like whatever grit he got would have been from that restaurant, not from his parents. And then Megumi, come on, what's the worst thing her dad could have done? How would that have influenced her? Oh, actually, you know what? It might be a thing of these are all kids from single parent homes. And then maybe that gave them some dark side. Ugh, man, funny stuff. I think it's just edginess for the sake of edginess. Anyway, overall, I think it's a really good chapter. And the only thing actually I don't like is that Soma is going to end up destroying whatever matters with the illegal chefs by just virtue of he's the protagonist. And the thing is that the series itself is going to continue the rhetoric of dark side and light side. And actually, I think depending on how important the author makes it, you're going to have an interesting situation where the main character is ultimately fighting the narrative flow of the story itself. And that doesn't happen that often. It's going to be an interesting situation where what the author is selling us is being contradicted by his main character. And I want to see if it keeps happening, because it's going to be moments like these where you get to see the background information, where you get to see people not being caricatures, where you're going to see the cracks starting to form in this whole narrative of dark versus light. To give you guys a better sense of what I'm trying to explain, it's like in Naruto, there was a message of like revenge isn't good, revenge only produces more revenge. And so the overall idea is to not take revenge, like at least like cut the cycle of hate. But then within Naruto itself, when you had Shikamaru's arc where his teacher died, everyone was pretty much okay with him going out and getting his revenge, right? Even though the overall message of the story is stop the cycle of hate, it never came into anything. It never came into effect when it was Shikamaru doing it, because at that point it was seen as righteous. So it's that kind of thing where you have an overall message being contradicted by the actions of characters. I'm really excited to see if that happens in Soma. Anyway, guys, a very long video. Sorry for taking it so long, but yeah, overall, I think it was a really good chapter. Had a lot of things to talk about. So let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.